Hello to all the Beaver Dam listeners and anybody else that's out there tuning in. It's a privilege to be here again with you. You know, I have to tell you, out of everything that I've thought about this week, that I've read about, that I prayed about, all my own personal fears, my own personal questions, my heart has just continually been focused on our nation's seniors, on the class of 2020. You know, I know that there are so many young adults out there, our high school seniors. We have so many here in the Beaver Dam congregation, but gosh, they're in every church, they're in every community, nearly every family. And all these guys are going through something that, if we're honest, none of us can really identify with. You know, I think it's pretty hard to imagine, if we're honest, in the midst of the final lap of your senior year, after all the years of, gosh, studying and thinking and worrying about everything from your GPAs to your SATs, from your academics to your athletics, from who are you going to ask to the prom, to what colleges are you going to apply for. And all of a sudden, everything you know and everything you've worked for comes to a screeching halt, and seemingly you have absolutely no control over that. You know, many of these young people have prom dresses in their closet as we speak. Many of them with reservations for spring break that are on hold or canceled. There's so many kids out there that have suddenly had to check status unknown on things like graduation and parties and future plans. You know, I think we're all honest is that absolutely safety has to take precedent. You know, social distancing has become the norm. That's why I'm standing here in front of an empty church. Small groups, staying home, self-quarantine is imperative. But I also think we have to remember, too, that while everyone is struggling, there are far worse places to be than home. This week I read Brooke Smalley's post, who is a missionary to Haiti, and she was saying how the coronavirus had hit Haiti, and I thought, wow, I can't fathom battling this healthcare crisis, let alone battling it in some place like that. But it doesn't change the fact that our nation's class of 2020 has been hit hard. Traditions have been postponed and plans have been canceled. That end of the year anticipation is morphed into more doubt and dread and fear than anything else. I suspect there's a lot of kids out there that had no idea, maybe, how much the milestones, how much the moments, how much their classmates, the events, truly meant to them. But let's be honest, seldom do any of us realize or acknowledge how much things mean to us until, with or without notice, they're taken away. You know, it's sadly that those kind of things usually happen by virtue of accidents or diagnoses or deaths, life-changing events. Never knowing really truly how much we value something or someone. But who in the world anticipated a global pandemic? Seniors, my prayer for you is that you never forget these days. That amidst all of your questions, amidst all of your concerns, that this time that you're living right now will become an unforgettable place in your journey. That you never lose sight of who you are, of your goals, of your plans, of your dreams. And seniors, hear me when I say this, that you continue to build your life. Chris Deere is the 2020 Louisiana Teacher of the Year. And Chris recently took to social media, penning a letter to our nation's seniors. He shared that he knows a little bit about the emotion because back in 2005, when Chris was a senior, it was the Hurricane Katrina in Louisiana. He said, one day I left for school, and when I returned finally, my school was gone. In his letter, he said, this is supposed to be your year, the year of your senior prom, of sporting events, of competitions, of senior trips. This was supposed to be your year as captain of the team, as officer of the club, or of the student who wanted to be with friends before venturing out into the unknown. Your year. But then Chris goes on to say, let me be abundantly clear, you were robbed, and it's unfair. But he goes on to say, I want to give you a little bit of encouragement. And I love these words. You have the power. You have the power, each of you, to make the most of this situation. Because if a decade of teaching has taught me anything, he goes on to say, it's that people your age are resilient and they're innovative. You can navigate between multiple worlds and bounce back and forth between physical and digital places with ease. You are all a part of the most radically and racially diverse generation the world has ever seen. And you have the ability to embrace the differences in ways that your parents and your grandparents may not be able to do. You courageously put yourselves out there in a world to be seen and criticized. You push boundaries and you challenge norms. You guys have the ability to find the most ingenious ways to compensate for the gaps that this broken world has created. And guys, no matter how frustrated you are, no matter how overwhelmed you are, no matter how crazy your life is right now, you are living through history as we speak. So here's the good news. It will get better. See, folks, there are so many people right here in this church, in this community, in your families that will echo his words. There is no pandemic strong enough to silence you. There's no pandemic strong enough to silence your voice and the passion that you have for your generation. So our encouragement is to keep positive, to keep fighting, to keep connected. We all know that this is not the year that you envisioned, and it's certainly not what you planned. But boy, we sure are excited to see what you do with it. In Psalm 71, 20-21, it says, "You have allowed me to suffer, but you will restore me to life again, and you will lift me up from the depths of the earth. You will restore me to even greater honor and comfort me once again." Guys, I want you to trust and believe that greater is coming. Because remember, a setback is a setup for a comeback. It was in the 4th chapter of 2 Corinthians that we have the Apostle Paul telling us that the good news is revealed to us. You know, Paul's teachings are telling us we're not supposed to think about ourselves, but we're to focus. Eyes straight ahead on the prize, on the glory and the grace that comes from Jesus Christ. Because folks, the reality is that we're not supposed to go around talking about ourselves. We're not supposed to focus on ourselves. But our job and our role is to let people see God shine through us. Every morning I turn on the news, and isn't it refreshing that instead of world wars and instead of devastation as far as people killing one another, we have people in cul-de-sacs dancing together. We have people entertaining one another. We have people talking, communicating with one another. Perhaps Christ is continually reminding us that even when we think we're at the end of our rope, we are never at the end of our hope. Even when we think we're at the end of our rope, we are never at the end of our hope. See, Paul was faced with unbelievable obstacles in his life. But see, Paul knew that he knew that one day the battles would cease. He knew that one day God's reward would be waiting for him. I think of all the athletes out there that have trained for the Olympics. Olympic swimmer Ryan Lochte released a statement this week. He goes, "Oh my gosh, yes, it's hard, but I will become a better swimmer because of all of this. I now have more fuel for my fire." More fuel for my fire. 2 Corinthians 4 confirms, yes, it's hard. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, there's obstacles and heartbreak and frustration and confusion, and life is filled with things that repeatedly try to get us to give up, to quit, to throw in the towel. But boy, what I love about the Apostle Paul is that he's such a warrior and he's such a fabulous example. Ephesians 3:16. I pray that from his glorious, unlimited resources, he will empower you with inner strength through his Spirit. With inner strength, strength you didn't even know you had, that you hadn't even tapped into, that you hadn't even identified. So with everything that's going on, seniors, what do you see positive? Do you see anything that God is using to the glory of those that love him? See, personally, I see families spending more time together. I see communities reaching out. I see neighbors putting neighborhood back into their vocabulary. Meals being delivered. People checking on one another. People helping one another. You know, I received a text this past week from one of the young ladies in my youth group so many years ago, and her text said, "Hey, how are you? Do you need anything?" And I thought, oh my gosh, that is so sweet. You know, here she is, a young mother with 2 children. But then it hit me. She's checking on the elderly, and that's me. But seriously, greater is indeed coming. And the resurrection power of Jesus Christ is standing strong, and it's standing on his promises to strengthen each one of you. Even in sadness, even in huge disappointment, even in frustration, even in the midst of a global pandemic. You know, I truly believe, I love the scripture from 1 Paul 5, because I think it talks about senior leadership. And seniors, that's what we need you to be now. We need you to be leaders, the leaders that you've been called to be, the leaders that you have worked all these years to be. Paul goes on to talk, he says they care for others, not just themselves. They care for others because it's part of their DNA. It's part of who they have become. So if you're a member of the class of 2020 out there, I want to challenge you this morning to use this time in history as a launching pad to your future. Use this time that you're dealing with, that you're walking through, that you're struggling with, as an opportunity to show by example to your friends, to your classmates, to your teammates, to your family. I challenge you to show them what you're made of and who you are, and even more importantly, whose you are. See, we live in a world that is constantly telling us, constantly reminding us, constantly hitting us over the head with problems. Constantly telling us, how big is your problem? Your problem is so big that you will fail. Your problem is so big you will give up. Your problem is so big you're going to quit. You're going to throw in the towel. But to the class of 2020 and all the other folks out there listening, I'm going to challenge you to stand up, to stand strong, and tell the world how big your God is.